I made it quite clear to Mr Gorbachev that there was no point in his ever trying to separate us from the United States. They would be on a hopeless mission if they did.
See this cut right here? It is Are you on the other inside? The only thing I have is very could be a better story than we thought. They come on to you though. Welcome, President. What do they do about equipment?
They asked me what, do you have the standard lenses, and if you want to change it,
Hi, Mary.
How was
Christmas
breakfast?
to you.
Good breakfast.
Everything settled?
Orange juice, eggs, all settled.
That was fine. It was very good.
Any dispute on Star Wars?
Marvelous breakfast.
We discussed mainly East-West relations and disarmament control talks. I also briefed the President on my talks with Mr Gorbachev. We discussed the Middle East and the Lebanon, Central America, the economy, and the famine in Africa. And I also briefed the President on the state of my talks with Mr Garrett Fitzgerald. President Reagan and I have had a very thorough and extensive discussion of the prospects for arms control negotiations, in the course of which we also naturally touched on the Strategic Defense Initiative. I was not surprised to discover that we see matters in very much the same light. I told the President that I had made it absolutely clear to Mr Gorbachev that there was no question of the Soviet Union being able to divide the United Kingdom from the United States on these matters. Wedge driving is just not on. I told the President of my firm conviction that the SDI research program should go ahead. Research is, of course, permitted under existing United States-Soviet treaties. And we, of course, know that the Russians have already their research program. With Mr Gorbachev, we discussed, obviously, East-West relations, obviously arms control. I made it quite clear to Mr Gorbachev that there was no point in either his or the Soviet Union ever trying to separate us from the United States. They would be on a hopeless mission if they did. I also discussed trade matters with Mr Gorbachev and a number of other matters. But we had a very realistic and constructive and business-like discussion. No rose-tinted spectacles on either side, and it's best that way. Really realistic, constructive, and business-like.
No disagreement whatever with the administration on the issue of SDI, Star Wars weapons?
I have indicated in great detail that I fully approve and have long before I came here, and have said so long before I came here, that I think it right to go ahead on the research program. There were, in fact, no differences, and why I have made it abundantly clear today is that I have been concerned about reports to the effect that there were. Those reports were not correct.
Madam Prime Minister.
Otherwise, you'll be in breach of treaty obligations. And I don't believe that it's the intention to be in breach of treaty obligations on the part of the United States in any way.
Gentleman now.
Madam Prime Minister, as a result of your talks with Mr. Gorbachev and your talks now with President Reagan, would you expect a summit between Mr. Reagan and Mr. Chernenko next year?
Peking visit Hong Kong?
Yes, I'm sorry. Of course, I did
If you did,
say something about the Chinese visit, both to President and to Vice President Bush.
Did agree, or instead can be allowed to lapse, and also did he agree that members of the Western Alliance would have some direct participation in the negotiations you're talking about with the Soviet Union that would be required somewhere down the road should deployment become advisable? In other words, would you have a veto? Would you have any kind of direct say?
No, we were not discussing the specific duration of particular treaties. I'm pretty sure I'm right, because I looked it up before I came to the States, that the anti-ballistic missile section is, I think, of indefinite duration, but that's just a question of fact. With regard to the West having direct participation in these talks, no, we did not discuss it. They will, of course, be between the Soviet Union and the United States. And if you then go on to ask about our own independent nuclear deterrent, it only amounts to something like 3% of the strategic missile component of the Soviet Union. And it really, therefore, is so small in proportion to the rest that we really do not, in fact, come into the strategic missile talks.
Gentleman there.
Out of the way. What? Wave? Alright. Go, turn back. Front. First class. You got it? Okay.